When I grow up, I want to be an NBA basketball player.
When I grow up, I want to be a famous soccer player.
When I grow up, I want to be a professional football player.
When I grow up, I want to be a professional cheerleader.
How many of us grew up wanting these exact same things, yet we find ourselves accepting less than we dreamed of as a child? Trauma, adversity, unfair circumstances, you name it. Totally understandable, yet, is it really? Here at I'm 1% Possible, we explore the unsung heroes, the everyday, unassuming individuals that you may have never heard of, but they all have one thing in common. When life struck them, they struck back. This is Chris Wyllie, and I'm pulling up his bio, which is quite extensive, but I had the privilege of meeting him with our mutual partner, Andrew, at was this the fifth or the sixth Murph that Andrew had partnered up with you guys for?
This is the first.
Okay. So we meet at the Chargers practice facility, and I was like, oh man, this dude looks like he's done some things and seen some more things and killed more people than he wants to talk about, and has got the sunglasses to boot. Here we go. So come to find out, and no surprise, you're one of the coolest dudes I've ever met. And I was honored to we got Murph on our fallen flag, which is up behind me. And man, you're just such a real and raw individual. And that's really the type of people that I'm trying to showcase, regardless of the cool guy badges and the military experience, whatever the case may be. That doesn't necessarily mean that you're a good person. And so I just appreciate the way that you carry yourself. And then come to find out as we start talking, one, you got a super cool service dog, and then you were also medically discharged. And I feel like you've got a very unique perspective on overcoming trauma. And so I just wanted to bring you on here. And
well, I appreciate the opportunity. You know, you've been doing some amazing things since I met you. One, you rolled in on full uniform, full tactical gear. You know, probably 110-pound backpack.
That was not a wise choice.
Probably not. I wouldn't have suggested that, but you did it, and then you did the Murph, and then you ran with everybody, and you finished your mile with all your extra weight, not the 20 pounds. You finished it with 20 pounds and then some. And then
my full battle
went
kit's like 35 pounds plus the weighted flagpole and the fallen flag. Man, that was a bold move, Cotton.
Definitely bold move, but you went, you did your mile, and then you continued to run until the last person finished their Murph, and that was just spoke volumes. And watching that and seeing what you were doing was amazing. So I instantly knew you were a man of character, and was appreciative to meet you, your family, and Stryker. So, but yeah, this is great. Your first ride, right? You did that first ride across the country.
Yeah.
Shortly thereafter.
That Murph we did that in May, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Give or take. And it was maybe a month later, we were right back in Oceanside with the full team. And we went coast to coast in 7.5 days. Man, what a journey that was. That I felt like we invaded America.
Well, that
My
had to be
God.
inspirational, and having people coming out and cheering you on and things like that as you drove across, rode across America, had to be pretty insane. I'm sure there wasn't a lot of 2 a.m. In the dark and crossing the Rockies, but when you hit the plains and hit some other places, I know you called me up and showed me some sunsets and sunrises, so it was pretty
Oh
cool.
man, it was incredible. Um, I didn't sleep for the first 3 days.
Uh-huh.
So I rode for the first on and off with my best friend Steve, who's in South Carolina, or excuse me, um, I'm starting to get tired already. But he's in Texas. His
Okay.
sister lives in South Carolina. So him and I traded off for about the first 400 miles. We kind of evenly split that. And then next thing I know, from solving problems to moving bodies to changing riders, etc., we pushed forward. Steve pushed forward at that point to Durango, Colorado. We followed a few hours later. We made some adjustments when we got there, and then he started riding in Durango. And then we pushed forward from there to the middle of Kansas, and I still hadn't slept.
Uh-huh.
So by the time we got to Kansas, I was just kind of like, blink, oh, my dad's here. I don't know how we got here. And
Mhm.
but I finally slept and then felt like a whole new man. And that was pretty incredible. To really, I don't know if you felt this way. I know you do a lot with the special operations in the SEAL community specifically, and then obviously in CrossFit. But for me, it's been hard to find tribe that understands life the way that we understand it, and then is then willing to put in the effort to do extraordinary things. And so by the time we got there, it was kind of make or break. Like, hey, the race is basically half over. Are we going to just feel sorry for ourselves and roll to the finish line? Or are we going to hit the gas and see what we got?
Uh-huh.
And at that point, we were 44-ish miles behind the German team. And of course, I mean, the internal gumption, we were motivated. And I just
Uh-huh.
said, look, I drew the line in the sand, said, this is what we're going to do. We're going to race them at this point. And within 12 hours, we had gained. But when I got off the bike at the other end of Kansas, and then my partner at that point was the tandem, so it was led by a Marine, retired sergeant major, and then the guy on the back was fully blind. They only were ahead of us by 3 miles.
Wow.
And then
That's some makeup. That's some ground you made up.
we were hauling ass, and then the whole team caught it. And then
Yeah.
I started building a psychological operation off of it. And I just said, look, because if you've ever dealt with the Germans, especially their military, and some of these guys were from their military, there's an air of arrogance, and not in a negative way,
Uh-huh.
just like us, right?
Yeah.
But I just said, look, we have to beat them mentally because all these guys are able-bodied. We beat them here, we'll win the rest. I'm not concerned about that. And so as we kept climbing, inching our way towards them, I said, we have to have myself, our hand cyclists, or the tandem pass them, because we have to pass them with our most broken individuals to break
Yeah.
them.
Yep. Yep.
I just happened to get lucky, and I passed them, and I just waved at them, and the guy's head just, and I went, cool, we're good, and then we
Yeah.
never saw him again, and that was really cool to watch as the documentary unfolds. Hopefully, we're hoping to have it out by Memorial Day. Still working on the post production, but
Okay.
to see the on paper most broken group of individuals come and beat so many able-bodied teams, like man, this is just a heartwarming story. I just get pride thinking about how everybody stepped up, everybody had their hero moment, and we all
we had the tribe. We came together. When somebody was down, somebody just volunteered to step up. I was
Yeah.
like, man, I haven't seen this. Arguably, this might have functioned even better than some of the units I was in the military. Because everybody's always got some ego, or I don't want to do this, or I don't like that guy.
Well, you had a common cause and a common mission, and I know you had some adversity before the start date, with some team
We had
issues.
a
So,
we
that
had a
was,
lot of adversity.
yeah,
Yeah,
pretty devastating trying to rebuild or
yeah,
get your on straight again after having
we
some
did.
horrible things go
We,
down.
we
So
lost one athlete due to injury, and then we lost another athlete due to choice. And so we were
yeah,
down to 6 of 8 eligible athletes. And my crew chief very wisely recommended, hey, just throw my name on the roster in the event of a worst case scenario, thinking, oh, maybe I'll ride 20 miles. Yeah, 200 something miles later, he was one of the boys just like everybody else.
well,
So
that's stepping up. That's the
right.
finding that tribe, that like-minded mindset, like you said before.
I want to go back to Murph because for me, this was a really impactful moment. So my kids were there. My youngest at the time, okay, she had just turned 7. Then my middle daughter is 9. And my son is 10. We watched Lone Survivor.
Uh,
And I wanted them to understand, one, and I'm in no way comparing myself to Murph, but if that would have been my team, that would have been my spot. I'm like, guys, this
Yeah.
is what this means. They watched Hell Week. They watched the whole thing go down. Ironically, the guy, I'm blanking on his name, the volunteers, in the movie, the blonde-haired dude that looks like he's Ivan Drago equivalent, that gets up and joins the team and sings the song and everybody makes fun of him. He's from my neighbor in town.
the actual seal or
The
the
actual seal. The actual seal.
Shane Patton.
Yes, Shane Patton. So every year they do a pub crawl for him.
Yeah.
He's from Boulder City, Nevada, which is literally like around the corner.
Yeah.
But, and I'm sure you'll remember this when I bring it up. So I'm out there continuing to chug along, trying to motivate the rest of the Andrel employees. Like, hey, yeah, I'm glad you're done, but we got some heavy Chevys out here that are still pushing. Why are you just hanging out, jacking around and shooting the shit? My youngest daughter, I don't even know if she's ever ran a full mile before. She's 7 in like some borderline oversized low top Air Force Ones. She joins me. She ran 4 miles.
I remember her going under the rope to catch up with you.
And here's what she says. Daddy, these people who haven't quit, would they have rung the bell if we didn't join? Now, for me, I have a friend, West Point classmate, who actually branched into the Navy to join the SEALs. And I can't speak from experience. I know Hell Week's pretty rough. I'm sure you can talk about that, and I look forward to hearing some of your stories. But he chose to ring the bell. And when you're an officer, you're one and done. So I said, for a 7-year-old to figure that out, I said, yes. We go until the job is done.
Yeah.
Bottom line, this is what we stand for as a family. And she's like, okay, we are going to run until this last guy is done. I was like, I don't have tears to cry right now, child. I'm probably already dehydrated.
Yeah.
But you figured it out. Like,
Yeah.
at 7 years old, this is such a simple concept.
But you need to have somebody present the concept, and that's what you did to have her understand the concept. So she's lucky to have you as her father to be able to give that lead by example.
I appreciate that. But that for me was very moving. And my kids were here earlier. I in no way expect them to hang out for 24 hours. It's a rough duty. But
Yes.
Point being, and we already got sidetracked. I want to finish your intro. I'd like to hear some of your backstory and how we ended up
Sure.
here. But I knew you're a Long Island guy because I recognized the accent from being at the academy for 4 years. You told me a little bit about that. And then, from my understanding, that's actually where the Murph Museum is at, correct?
That's correct. Yes, in West
And
Sayville.
because that's where he was from, right? His parents?
Yes, they grew up Patchogue, which was only a couple of miles away from where the museum is.
Okay. So that's pretty cool that how God kind of orchestrated that whole thing together. But how do we go from Long Island to joining the SEALs? I'm assuming this is straight out of high school. The Navy recruiter walk in, you like the uniform. How do we get there? Did you grow up swimming in the miserably cold Atlantic Ocean, or?
So I wasn't a big swimmer or anything. It was more of, when I was in high school, I had an inkling to go into the service. Back in the late 80s, early 90s, they didn't have any information about SEALs. So you had no idea what they
Right.
were or anything like that. So it wasn't like in your face.
So you didn't grow up on the Charlie Sheen movies, or?
No, I mean, I saw the Charlie Sheen movie. It was a cool movie, but you kind of really didn't understand the whole gravity of what they were doing.
Right.
But so what happened with me was got through high school. I had a high school sweetheart. I was supposed to go wrestle at Ithaca, and I kind of had the ultimatum of, if you leave, I'm going to break up with you, kind of a thing. So you're young, you're not sure of yourself. So I
Of
said,
course.
no, I'll stay home. I did community college for a couple of years and could see that I was going absolutely nowhere. And it was a funny kind of a thing. I'm just telling you the God's honest truth. I'm driving home one way, and I'm like close to my house, and I'm like, if I don't leave here, I'm gonna blink and I'm gonna be 30, and I'm gonna be in my same hometown with the same shitty job, and I won't make anything of myself. So that's
Okay.
when I decided, okay, I'm going into the military. I have to get out of here. So then I started researching jobs because I wanted to do something that I could myself be proud of, since I didn't go, wrestle at Ithaca and do that route that my parents wanted me to do. I wanted something that they may be proud of me, be able to say, hey, my son did this. So that's where I started researching, and I looked into Green Berets. I looked into all of these different, special forces and different, avenues and jobs in the military. And I came across a book, and it was called Brave Men, Dark Waters. And it was a
Haven't heard
recount.
that one. I like it.
Yes. Yeah, but it was a recount of pretty much UDT frogmen into Vietnam, right?
Okay.
And it was just, kind of riveting. And I really was drawn to that black ops. Nobody knew what you were doing. You could be anywhere at any time, that type of stuff. So that's where the idea of being a SEAL came from. And within months, once I made the decision to SEAL, I went and did the ASVAB and all that stuff and went in
Right.
as an enlisted guy. But I went in and I failed that test 8 times in a row. I went into boot camp, raised my hand, and 8 weeks in a row, every Tuesday I went in and failed miserably. And it
So
was
you
funny.
didn't go in with a SEAL contract.
They didn't have that.
Okay.
So when I went in, you had to pick a rating. This is all stuff, and I'll explain real quick. I don't want to take all the time, but you had to have a SEAL rating.
You got all the time in the world, Chris. I'm going nowhere for 24 hours. Please.
You're just pedaling. You're pedaling. Okay.
Yep.
I'm keeping you company.
Yep.
So
Exactly.
So you have to have a rating. So you could be a corpsman, a medic, a cook, a boatswain's mate, gunner's mate, all,
Right.
I don't want to call it a basic job, but like a standard job.
Right.
And you're allowed to volunteer to be a SEAL. So my recruiter failed to tell me that, and put me
What? The used car salesman didn't give you all the information?
right.
Stop.
Right.
Stop. Okay.
It's shocking. You've never heard this story, right? And so I get signed up. I get signed up for a fire controlman, which was advanced electronics, missile guidance, Tomahawk, cruise missiles school.
Okay.
Now,
So
not
you think
everybody
you're
goes.
going to the fleet?
Well, I knew I was going to that job, and all he said was, "Look, SEALs is voluntary. When you go to boot camp, you raise your hand and you take the test. Doesn't tell me that you can't leave that rating. So get to boot camp, raise my hand, I go in, I fail, and fail, 8 weeks in a row.
And was
I
this
get
like
better.
basic pool comp or type that kind of stuff, or what are we talking about?
It was very simple. It's a very simple test if you look at it on paper. It just somebody understood the human body and they arranged it so it's a little difficult just because of the way they have it. So they have you swim about 500 yards first. Then you do as many push-ups as you can do in 2 minutes, as many sit-ups
Okay.
as you can do in 2 minutes, and then you have to hit 10 pull-ups. So by the time you do your swim, your push-ups, your sit-ups, you're kind of like your upper body's kind of shot,
Of
and then
course.
you have to do these 10 pull-ups, and then you run a mile and a half. So it's not a bad, crazy test. It's just the way it's arranged. It's gives you muscle failure earlier on. So I kept failing at the pull-ups. So
Okay.
I get through these 8 weeks of Navy, rigorous boot camp, which is, there's no physical activity at all there. And I go and I see the guy and I fail. And I looked at this guy who is a Navy SEAL at the time.
Okay.
And, I'm failing in front of who I'm aspiring to become. And I look at him and I said, I'll be back next week. And he goes, no, don't come back. He goes, are you going to school here? And it was in Chicago and Great Lakes. And I said, yes. And I told him, and he goes, okay, go to the on base gym and you do pull downs for 2 months with the
Right.
machine. You build yourself up and you just keep moving the weight and do all of this stuff. And he goes, and I guarantee when you come back in 2 or 3 months, you'll pass.
Right.
And I said, no, I want to come back next week. He goes, listen, everybody else that I saw in this past 2 months, he goes, they came one time and they failed, and I never saw them again.
Right. They
He's
didn't
like,
have the gumption. No
yeah,
balls.
he's like, you've been here eight times and failed 8 times. He goes, I know how hard you want this. So I leave. I do exactly what this guy says. I come back
Thank
in.
you, Jan. Can I
He
get
he,
some ice in this, please? Thank you.
he
Go ahead.
sees me walk in. Now this guy's dealing with boot camp. He's in, hundreds of people a month. And he sees me walk in and he goes, Wyllie, you're back. You're going to do this? I said, sure. So I passed the test after listening to what this guy told me to do. And then he went to bat for me because I went to put my package in to get orders to go to SEAL training.
Right.
And my
But you're
command.
still in line to go be a missile guy.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So my school would not release me.
Okay.
So, and then
This
I
sounds
found,
familiar.
yep. So then I found out that overheard a few people talking, and as an E2,
Right.
didn't
You had
really
all the
know what
power
to,
in the world, right?
right. Yeah. So didn't really know what to do. So I called up the dive motivator, the SEAL, and I said, hey, I heard them saying this. They're not going to release me. I don't know what to do. He told me, he goes, go get me your package, bring it, drop it off to me. He goes, and I got it. Went up there, told them I needed to change something in the package. They handed me the package back. I dropped it off to him. About a week later, I got the commanding officer pulling me out of class, screaming at me. I don't know what you did, who you called, flipping out, they're going to release you. I have to release you. And I said, I don't know what happened, sir. I should captain
Right.
master.
Oh boy.
And I was like, sir, I didn't do anything, so long story short, he released me. So that's how it, kind of started. That's how the, basic stuff, went through for me getting
Right.
there.
Well, that's rough.
Yeah,
So you
no,
started out in rough waters. What's
yeah,
it like leaving that environment and then showing up to buds?
it's a little intimidating to say the least, because I was in a school for, you know, advanced electronics. So there were not a lot of guys working out.
Of course.
I'm kind of, I own an electronics company and stuff. So I'm a nerd in a big guy's body, I guess. And,
Okay. That's a
So
dangerous combo.
yeah, right. So so it was kind of interesting. I'm around all these guys, and I'm the only one running and beating myself up daily, getting ready to go to SEAL training. But when you showed up at SEAL training, you're you know you're around all these guys that that's their mission, is to become a SEAL. So you have every walk of life, kind of like athlete, high performing athlete, swimmer,
Right.
ultra marathon guy. You have all of these people that are like in sick shape. I am not a ultra runner. I can swim very well, but running is not my forte. It's never been. I don't think it ever will be. But you're watching people run, 5 minute miles in soft sand with boots on. It's like kind of
Oh my
impressive.
God. Yeah,
But
that's to say the least.
yeah, so we're all sitting there, and you're watching. Before you start up with buds, you had a couple of weeks while everyone's flying in from all over the country and world
Right.
and back with their orders. So you got to give them time to, get there. So, we're there, and your job technically was, getting your gear ready and, go out on the beach and work out. You kind of had I don't want to call it a loose schedule, but, kind of basic, and you ran your own workouts. So, you're in Coronado, California, in summertime,
Yeah,
in
rough life.
UDT shorts on, no shirts on. You got all these jacked guys out on the beach, and everyone's sizing themselves up. You're looking, going, this guy's gonna make it. That in your
Right.
mind, not saying it, but you're like, oh my god, that guy's a
Of course.
monster.
Yep.
They're gonna
I've
make
been
it, or they're gonna make it.
I've
And
done that myself.
right, and then you're surprised after you get through Hell Week and you see who actually is still standing, and it's usually not those guys. Usually
Right.
it's not the guys that are the cover of Men's Fitness, or the guys that had the best athletic
Right.
history in college and were the super athletes. Those are the guys that usually had it easy all their lives. Everything came
Mm,
easy. You got the little 5'1" guy that got picked on and needed a stool to get stuff out of the cabinets. You got those
the
guys that
Smurf
have to
crew.
struggle. Yeah, the Smurf crew. So definitely, definitely intimidating when you first get there, and you're looking around, because you're trying to compare yourself to other people, and when you're young, you don't understand that you can't do that. You can't look at someone else and say, hey, they're better than me, or think they're better than you, because you have no idea what they're thinking. You know,
Isn't that
so
funny how human nature, I'm sure you found yourself in that situation many times. And I'm curious, you got a lot more experience than I do in especially that environment. I don't have any. Sure, I can guess what this answer will be, but what did you find was the differentiator in not just Hell Week, but throughout that process? And then I would imagine when you actually show up to a team, again, you basically start over. They're like, yeah, the
yeah.
trident. Well, one, from my understanding, you probably didn't even get your trident until you got to the team, and then they decided when you were eligible to get it.
That was how I went through. Now
Right,
now when you go through training, you get your trident upon graduation after you get through
right,
SPC. But when I
right,
went through, you did buds, then you did SEAL tactical training,
right,
then had to prove yourself at the team, and then they had a review board, then they would pin you. And it was a long process of proving yourself over again. But the differentiator between people, especially in training, I think it's just more of that grit and determination of, I'm not going to quit. You don't have to be the best, you know, athlete. You don't have to be the best of, I don't want to say best of anything, but you don't have to be number one.
right,
You have to show the effort. You have to show selflessness. You have to show that, compassion. You just can't be an ass.
right.
This arrogant guy. You won't make it in the teams if you're not liked. So that's a hard facts. So you could be the most cocky, confident guy and awesome at everything you do. They won't want you. You won't
Right.
make it. All of a
Because you're
sudden
not a team player.
you're not a team player. So all of those other attributes that may not fit with somebody that's supposed to go do some really hard, dangerous, violent things maybe doesn't line up in people's minds, where you have to be compassionate and you have to be understanding and selfless, but that's a big component of the military. A lot of people don't think of it that way. Pilots, everybody has to have that team mentality.
I would agree. At least if you want to be successful.
Yes, yeah, I really believe that if you want to be successful and you want to have a good, team and have people look at you as a good person, I've been out a long time. I don't get to talk to everybody, but when I do get, messages or things from people, and it's a positive reflection on, when we were in the teams and stuff, it
Right.
means the world to me. So to have a lifelong lasting impact on somebody where they look at you at a certain way is
Right.
to me it's important, so to be for somebody to think you're a good teammate, that means a lot. That's the same thing as just being a good human.
I would agree. I think those are wise words that not just this generation, but the world today really could use. It's not about you. It's about what you bring to others and how you then cohesively get that unit, organization, whatever, to whatever the desired end state is.
Well, what's interesting, Caleb, is that I'm speaking a whole lot more than I've ever done before, and I'm enjoying it. I do the tours at the museum and I speak to a
Right.
lot of kids, and it is therapeutic to me, but it also helps remind me of all of those things that we can't control. We're disabled veterans. You're out, your mind's not, thinking correctly sometimes.
Right.
And, things happen mentally that I get depressed a lot. Things happen where, out of nowhere, I'll wake up and
Yep.
I'll be in a bad mood. And I know,
Uh-huh.
it'll last for a few days and I'll be able to shake it off. And it's good that, we do these things where we talk to each other on, you're doing a podcast, I'll go in front of kids and we try to explain to them mindset and selflessness and integrity and character to help them, but at the same time it's helping us. It's helping us remember all
I
of
agree.
those things and keeping it in our, fresh in our minds so we don't
I agree.
forget, right?
I'm curious. So you finish STT, you finish SQT. Did you go East Coast or West Coast?
Well, I went East Coast. I was at SEAL Team 2 because I grew up on Long
Right.
Island with the accent. Um, went to the East Coast and wound up getting hurt after I was working up to deploy. So I was there probably 2.5 years. We were
Okay.
starting to work up to deploy, getting ready, and then I blew out my neck. So I have C4, 5, 6, 7 all fused.
I just
Nice.
saw your photos when you posted that
Yeah.
yesterday, the day before.
Yeah.
And obviously mine aren't fused, but I was like, man, if I don't know this pain, wow.
Yeah.
What
Well,
what was
yeah.
that like?
Getting the fusion or the injury itself?
Both. And here's
Well,
why I say both.
Mhm.
The point of this, one, and I've tried to make this clear from the start. One, I'm not here to set records for me. Been there, done that. It's not about my ego. But I think there's really a lot of people, veterans, civilians, kids, they're going to hear this. Maybe they're in the exact same situation. Maybe they're not. But you get told, one, you get injured. I remember you're like, man, now I feel worthless because my identity was in being the teammate, the leader, the best of the best with honors, whatever that is. And now my guys are getting ready to go do something and I can't join them. So not only am I not a teammate, now I'm an outcast.
Yeah, it was very frustrating. Let's say that, to say the least, to get injured, right? Then dealing with, being in the service, trying to navigate the medical treatments that were, this is late 90s into 2000. So,
Right.
Now the treatments are different than they were 20 years ago. So
70s level technology.
kind of, yes. Yeah. Still had DOS computers at that point in the
Right.
VA.
Right.
But, like I go to pain management in the VA hospital and they almost kill me because they didn't read my record, and like all of these things, are making me more and more anti-surgery because I was terrified that, I'm going to get, messed up. And when I was speaking, to a few other, guys in different teams, in the West and the East Coast with me that had spinal injuries and had surgeries, that they were utilizing similar doctors or the same doctor that was, consulting with me. And they went in and, fused the wrong level and then put them in rehab, had them going. Now you have a fusion, but now the injured area still's injured and they're putting you through rehab. And then they figure this out. There's no malpractice lawsuits, right?
Especially back then. I think things have changed a little bit now in some capacity, but yeah,
Yeah,
you were.
Yeah, so like I'm hearing all
You're
these.
at the mercy of trusting a practicing, usually new doctor with almost no experience.
Yes. So I'm going through all of these, interesting, medical conversations to the point where I said, you know what, enough's enough. I'm gonna drive up to New York, go to Stony Brook here, which is a very good hospital, and get an opinion. So my mother luckily was an administrator in one of the offices in Stony Brook, had a neurosurgeon that was going to be in over the weekend. I drove up, saw him on a Saturday. He looked at my MRI, reviewed me, and he goes, look, if you can hold out from getting surgery for as long as you can, you're going to have a better outcome. And I said, okay, that makes sense. And so I went back down to the teams. I tell this doctor that I got a second opinion. He almost wanted to, bust me just for doing that.
Oh boy.
Yeah. So I go back to my platoon, trying to continue doing the workup.
Right.
We're out in Arkansas doing land warfare for 2 months.
Okay.
And neck goes out just out of nowhere. Neck goes out again, can't move, can't breathe, and I'm like,
if you don't mind, what caused the initial injury?
So to rewind a little bit, I didn't make it through SEAL training the first time.
Okay.
So I wound up quitting in Hell Week the first time. But because I was an enlisted guy.
Right. You got an opportunity to come back.
Yeah, but what I did was a little different. So what happened was I was measuring myself up to a couple of people that I was friends with that were studs.
Okay.
They quit during Hell Week on Tuesday morning.
Right. If they can't make it, I can.
That's exactly what went through my mind. And I wasn't even thinking of quitting. And probably was like an hour or so later, because we weren't near each other at the time. And like an hour or so later, I talked myself into this, right? So
I've been there too. I understand that pain.
So I talked myself into this. I wake up the next day, go, oh my God, what did I do? I go down to first phase and I say, hey, I made a mistake. And they go, yeah, we know you made a mistake. I said, well, put me back in, to another class. I'll start over. And they go, no, it doesn't work that way.
Sorry, I forgot to tell you. So your budget is 6 hours, obviously.
Yep, I marked it.
Okay, and we're probably on 200K.
Yep, ready to mark that too. Thanks, John.
So they bring me up to the command master chief. and now I'm like an E4 at the time, and I'm
Okay.
standing in front of a SEAL Command Master Chief, and pleading my case here. And he goes, I'm not going to send you to the fleet. So he goes, we need good guys like you over at the boat unit. So he goes,
Okay.
he goes, we're going to send you over to SWIC.
Right.
So,
Which is
he
pretty
goes,
high speed.
that's super high speed. You know, like I tell people, if you didn't want to be a SEAL, that's probably the best job in the Navy, because you're on high speed boats, driving the SEALs, jumping out of planes, doing all cool stuff.
Right.
You're just not kicking indoors, you know. So you have a little layer of, you know, I don't want to call it safety, but you're not
Right.
doing the SEAL stuff, but you're still with the SEALs doing spec war. And it was awesome.
Okay.
But that's what happened. They said, hey, you know, we're going to send you across the street. If you make it through the SWIC training, you do a tour over at SWIC training,
Okay.
you have an open invitation to come back. And I was
Wow,
like,
you really made an impression.
yeah, I don't know how, but that's what that's what happened. And so I'm one of maybe a dozen guys that have done both. So I'm like a two, whatever they call it, two pin or something. But you know,
Wow.
there's not a lot of us that have done SWIC training, special boat unit, then SEAL and SEAL team. You know, so it is, as much as it wasn't the path that I wanted to go on. It was definitely something that, you know, turned out to be a, you know,
Blessing.
a unique way of, you know, and special thing that I did with having both, you know, qualifications in special warfare. But that's what happened. I didn't make it through the first time. Went through SWIC class 16. That's how old I
Okay.
am. And then went back to Buds and was class leader through SEAL training that time, and then went
So
over to SEAL.
obviously it served you well. You
It
came
did.
back and then stepped up, which is probably what they were hoping to see.
Yeah, no, you know what it was? It's a mental maturity. You know, you know, some people like, oh, well, if you quit once, you'll quit again. That's not true. It's more of
You're
you know,
living proof.
well, you're trying to, you know, like a lot of these people say out there now online and stuff. You have to try to harden your mind and you know, understand what life is.
Right.
And you know, life is just hard. You know, so you know, if you look at everything as a negative experience and woe is me,
Right.
then that's what everything's going to look like. So like during Hell Week, when you feel like, you know, it's bad, I learned to start laughing or singing or making jokes and, you know, trying to make everyone else laugh
Right.
and
Sounds
uplifting the
very
students.
Goggins of you.
A little bit. You know, Goggins is a little more intense with the F that and, you know, stay hard kind of stuff, which
Right. But I know in his books he's talked about singing songs and almost
I
playing the game backwards.
yes, yeah. So like I still do that to this day. Like even at CrossFit, when I go to the gym at 5 a.m,
Oh yeah.
I'm the guy who, when it's a 30-minute workout and it sucks, I start laughing. I'm yelling out stuff even though I can't breathe. You know, I'm
Yep.
the guy doing that to make everyone else laugh,
Right.
because you know, people need that energy.
Well, if I'm being honest,
Mhm.
that's why I'm interviewing people.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep you
Because
motivated.
not only that, and I obviously I handpicked who I wanted to interview, people that to me are heroes of mine. But it helps me mentally. I'm not paying attention.
Mm. Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm just
You're not looking at
I'm
the
just
mile.
having conversations.
Yeah.
So the interview right before you was my friend who he did this in the spring on a regular bike. He was, I don't know, I mean, built different. He's a therapist. He just put his head down and pedaled for 24 hours. He's like, I didn't want anybody to talk to me. I like, oh my gosh, I'd be dying if I didn't have any interaction with somebody. I'd be so bored that I would just like, I don't want to do this because I'm not entertained. And not that I'm attempting to be entertained by my guests, but it helps me get through this. We're sitting here telling stories. I don't feel the pain. I don't
Yeah.
notice it because I'm not paying attention to it because it's not the only thing I'm focusing on.
Yeah. But you're
So
also not in your own head.
exactly. And that's why I'm like, man, let me find some badass motherfuckers that we can go tell real stories. That, oh, by the way, if you see him on the street, besides, I had a couple friends text me. They're like, "Holy shit, this guy's so ripped. He's got wrinkles in his shirt from his muscles." I was like, "Well, he runs a CrossFit gym and he's a SEAL. Like, what do you expect? He's gonna be a fat slob?"
Yeah. I'm
But
trying not to be, Caleb. I would love to sit back, but you can't be that anymore, especially if you want to be an example for your own kids and for your community. That's the
I
the
agree.
honest truth of and the reality of it is that if you want to make an impression and you want to change something, you got to start with yourself.
That's what my first guest talked about. And that's what I told. I'm a coach in my son's basketball team, and Thursday was our last practice. They're literally at practice right now. And I said, "Look, guys, I'm not going to be on Saturday because I'm going to be riding my bike for 24 hours." And they're like, "What?" And I said, "I will never ask you to do anything that I am not willing to do in multiples. You guys play a basketball game for maybe 40 minutes. Like, I'm just getting warmed up for 40 minutes." So
Well,
when you
well,
think
they're playing basketball and they may not be in the game for 40 minutes.
there's that too. But point being, guys, I'm never going to ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself in spades. Oh, by the way, when you're done with practice, come on out because we got chicken wings and dinner coming in, and just come hang out and watch. And they were like, "Wow." I don't say that to self-aggrandize. I say that as, here's reality. To me, to you, this is what it means to be a leader. I'm going to lead from the front. I'm going to lead by example. And if you don't like that, then don't be on my team. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, well, your job or our job is to anybody who is under our leadership, our kids and other people that we come across or look up at us,
Absolutely.
look up to us, right? Our job is to make them the best versions of themselves and hopefully rise above where we ever were. And that's what
Absolutely.
my goal is with anybody that I interact with, especially a kid. Like, I hope you're a badass, and if you don't want to be a badass, I want you to be extraordinary. Like,
Right.
do something, you know, I'm tired of everybody telling these kids that everyone's equal, everyone's the same, everything's okay, everyone's a winner, like all of those things. And some of it's changed or started to change, but
Right.
you know, that's not the way life is. And if you want to
Would
be,
agree.
if you want to be something special, go for it. You may
I would
fail,
100% agree.
right? You may fail, but that doesn't mean you can't keep trying to be that, right? So that's a lot of the message that I try to put out when I have these kids at the museum when I do the tours. It's dream big, like
Right.
that's what you want to do. Dream big, and a lot of people are gonna, the people that you think are going to be your cheerleaders may not cheerlead the way you think they are because they don't dream as big as you do. So
Right.
now,
Or
you
they're
know,
insecure in themselves and they watch you do something and they think, well, I could never, so I'm not going to support you, which has nothing to do with you.
exactly, but you don't know that when you're young. You don't understand
No,
that.
no, no, no.
So you're sitting there going, why, why are they saying this or why, and it's not, it's like you said, it's their own insecurities or their own faults that make that happen. My own father, when I told him I was going to be a SEAL or wanted to be a SEAL, said, "Oh, you'll never make it. You're too nice." And I could have said, "Oh,
Wow.
okay." Yeah, I could have said, "Okay," and he didn't say it in like a mean way. It's just
No.
that was his opinion. So it
So what
was
did he
just,
say when you graduated?
oh, absolutely, I'm so proud of you. It was more of there to this day I hear that, and it's sometimes it was held back. I've had my father was a veteran or is a veteran, and he has his own issues with stuff.
Of
So
course.
my uncle was a helo pilot in Nam, like they
Wow.
have, yeah, they have their own. He got shot down twice. He used to fly in the mercenaries, is what he called them, but it was the SEALs and this, special forces guys, the
The
SOG
Mac
guys.
V. Yeah.
Yeah, he would fly them in, and and they wanted to go in where the stuff was happening. So
Of
he's like,
course.
he tells stories. He's like, they never asked me to like land in a nice field. It was always like, oh, they're the tracers. Put me down there, like in the tracers, and that's how he got shot down a couple of times. But yeah, they've had their own issues, So
That was
um,
a very unforgiving conflict
oh
with,
yeah,
I would argue, probably no support for those guys when they came back.
no,
Uh, my
absolutely
mentor
horrible.
was, I didn't know until Sean Ryan did the podcast with Dick Thompson, which ironically
Mhm.
was on my triathlon team in Georgia. My mentor was in MACV, and
Mhm.
I knew he was a Green Beret. Um, but when I started hearing the stories, I reached back out to him and I said, "Hey, sir, uh, I, do you know this guy?" Um, he goes, "No, I don't know him." But I said, "You told these same stories, and like you are batshit crazy." And Dick said, "You either came back basically dead or with a few screw sleeves
Yeah,
because of the things that they were doing."
yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, okay, well that explains this." I mean, literally, his nickname was Mad Dog,
Mhm.
and I was like, "Okay." So when I asked him, he's like, "Yeah, I don't really talk about it, but yeah, I was a part of that," and which then basically went into the beginning of Delta Force, and then they nixed it, and then they rebuilt it because politics and blah blah blah. Wow, I mean, we don't even, again, we don't know who we're walking the most because it's the
No,
everyday person who's the most unassuming. It's usually the most lethal.
yeah, and it's the really, like you said, unassuming. So I've met a ton of people. I had one of the guys that was in my buds class that when I went down and saw them, I think it was maybe 10 years ago. We had a little mini reunion, and he maybe is 140 pounds, 5'7", unassuming, quiet, nice guy. And all the guys around me were like, he is the most deadly person over at Dev Group, over at Six. And he's like,
Wow.
so many kills, like he's killed. And I'm like, really? Like looking over at him, I'm like, really? And they're like, no, really. They're like, we're telling you right now, it's like ridiculous. And I'm like, holy shit. It just most unassuming people. You can't think especially nowadays with MMA stuff with people training with
Oh yeah.
fighting, like you can't, you don't want to tie up and deal with that. Nobody's just street fighting anymore. It's it's a different world.
No. What's up, Daddy? Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. I no
Everybody
promises
coming
right now.
in, everyone coming and checking in on you.
Oh, every 30 minutes I enjoy a sugary treat of sorts.
Oh,
So
nice.
I got a Rice Krispie treat. So we got a little sidetracked.
Yeah.
You went to Swick. Did you get injured with Swick, or did you get injured training with Team Two?
So what we're coming to figure out is that the spinal injury that I have is
Right.
probably stemming from the boat side, and then it didn't
Oh.
come to it did yeah didn't come to light until working up and going through getting ready to deploy something during training, you know brought it to the surface, because what
Right.
what I was doing was not something that would have injured my neck to that extent, when it
Got it.
came to light. But they have some new studies out with the boat guys where it's like 26 G's of force when you hit that, each wave when you're slamming into the wave. So,
Well,
fighter
I'm
pilots.
curious.
Mhm.
How did it feel carrying those boats on your head during Hell Week
Um,
after the injury?
well, I didn't know I had the injury. It definitely kills, but I just thought I was,
Right. But everybody's
just
hurting. So
everybody was feeling, just sitting there and your top of your head is raw. There's no hair
oh,
anymore because it just like sits there and like sands the hair off your
right,
head. And you're just sitting there like, oh my God.
right.
I always joke with people. I say, hey, I was 6'2", and they kind of compressed me down to 5'9". So, um, but yeah, so I think ultimately, because now there's a lot of boat guys that are getting the same issue where,
Ah,
have this neck injury, you're losing like use on one side of your body, that type of stuff. And they're like, oh, you have, I forgot they were calling like Swick
like
arm.
their version of operator syndrome. You got Swick
Yes.
syndrome.
Yeah, so that's coming to light now. So that's where I think happened, but I probably fended that off for 3 or 4 years after getting
Okay.
out of the boat unit.
Right,
So that's how I got hurt. Was probably a overuse injury that
right.
finally kind of came to light. So
So let's walk through that. Neck fusion. I saw something about you're missing. Is it all the triceps? One of the triceps?
I have most of my left tricep. Like I guess there's what 2 or 3 heads on that,
Three.
right?
Yep.
3. So I probably only have one or a half of one. So my
Okay.
arm works. It's just like me doing push-ups is, I have to do push-ups on my knees, which is a very humbling
So you're doing
experience.
single arm?
No, well, it's kind of single arm, but I do use 2 arms, but
Okay.
the left side's really not pushing that much,
Got
so
it.
part of my bicep is missing now, and it's all just because there's no
Right.
nerves going to those
So
areas
the
of.
muscles are there, but they're not being fired. Is
Well,
that
yeah,
correct?
now they've atrophied.
Got
So
it.
this arm, my left arm is probably 3, maybe 4 inches smaller than my right arm. So unless I point it out to somebody, you can't
Right.
really tell talking to me. But when I turn and like lift my arm up, you go, oh God, yeah, I can see that. So I call my left arm like my Nemo fin. I got my little fin, and then I got my right arm. So
Oh,
um, yeah, so my lat is a little messed up and my chest is a little messed up. So it's
but
definitely
you run a
from when I got.
CrossFit gym.
Huh?
You run a
What was that?
CrossFit gym, right?
Oh, well, no, I don't run the CrossFit gym. I'm a staunch supporter of my local
Ah,
CrossFit gym. So
okay.
if I had the ability or the opportunity to be a part of that, I probably would invest in it because I love the place, and I try to help promote it daily.
Oh, I
Uh,
know. I see the 4:30. You're like Jocko. Here's the watch.
yeah,
I'm out the
yeah.
door. I'm
Well,
like, oh,
well, listen, it took me. You brought up tribe and community earlier, and I was missing that for a long time.
oh, yeah.
And it took me a years and years and years of horrible battling my own, inner voice and everything
Mm-hmm.
like that to then ultimately come up with, hey, I need to do something hard.
Yep.
I picked doing one of these, big swims across the Hudson, the 3.5 mile swims, and all.
Woo.
I picked something to kind of set my sights on.
Huh?
And when I did that, and I was pulled back into the community by just being around like-minded guys, I got to see a few of the SEALs, a few of the people that I knew,
Right.
kind of recharged me. So my wife recently said to me, she goes, man, I wish you figured this out a long time ago, because I personally isolated myself, so when
Oh,
I
so
got
did I.
injured,
So
yeah,
did
so
I.
when I
100%.
got injured, you kind of, you're there at the team, you kind of get pushed aside because you're not really,
Because now you're not a functioning cog.
exactly. So now you're kind of pushed aside, you're in limbo, you're waiting to get discharged or whatever. And they really don't know what to do with you. You're still friends with everybody. Everybody,
Right.
is okay with you, but you're kind of not, helping. You're
Mm-hmm.
not doing anything. So, it's kind of like, hey, just stay out of the way, stand over there, and that
Well,
was
and
a
I
hard
don't know
pill
about
to,
you, but in my case, they like stopped tracking. So I just
yeah.
stopped showing up because it
Uh-huh.
was a reminder of I can't do this.
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to feel like that. So that's even where the isolation gets even worse.
Yeah. Yeah, so I had similar thing. It was more of like they didn't know what to do with me. They're kind of just waiting my time out until my, discharge date was there.
Right.
And it was just really a hard pill to swallow because
Oh, of
you're in the
course.
mix, you're having fun, you're going out, you're working out, you're doing all this stuff with everybody, and then now you're doing nothing. You
Right.
you can't do the workouts, you can't do this. You're trying to medically figure yourself out. Now
Mhm.
what am I doing now? Now I'm trying to move back home. Where am I going to go? Like all of these interesting emotions and feelings, and then you kind of come back here and you're like, do I
Right.
call them?
And
Do
now I
I?
don't fit in at home because
What are they? Yeah, you
I've
don't
done
fit
so
at
many
home, but
things that
also you don't.
nobody else. And I don't know about you, but I found when I came home, it's like I almost feel like I've jumped light years ahead, and everybody else is just moving to maybe they've done a lot, maybe they haven't. Maybe they were somewhere in between, and you're like, I don't fit in anywhere now.
Yeah. No, well, I tried to speak to people that I knew from high school that were still in the area that I was friends with in the past, and it just never clicked again. It was
Right.
totally different, like you said. It's like they were in the same place. I'm just visiting, and
Right.
that's how it felt. And it was
Mm.
hard. And I remember one of the first memories of being home was when I went to like 7-Eleven over here. I don't know if it's like a Wawa or whatever, but
Oh, we got 7-Elevens. Yeah, I'm tracking.
so you go to get a cup of coffee. I'm standing online. Some guy like shoves past me, just
Right.
physically hits me and pushes past me. Doesn't say a word, and I'm just like, oh man, I am totally invisible
Mm.
from where I was, in the military. So it was a
Mm.
interesting thing, but I withdrew myself from my teammates in the
Right.
military, and then isolated myself because I didn't fit in. So I would try to fit in with people that I went to high school with, and then I would help them. They would call me up, hey, can you come help me paint my house or do this or
Right.
move that? I would run over, do all this stuff with them and say, hey, maybe 2 weeks later, hey, can you help me move a couch? No, the game's on.
Ooh.
I'm like, what? So after that, I was like, okay, we're not in the same level, right?
Mm.
So definitely a hard thing to mentally and emotionally go through, and then trying to figure out what's right and what's wrong with us. But me finding to find
How
like
did
people.
how did you end up? One, how long was that period of time where you felt like I, I don't fit in, or maybe almost like I don't really exist here?
That probably was a good 10 years or so in that mindset, and then what I did was I forced or pushed myself into work.
Okay.
So
Yep.
like
Understand that. I've done the same thing.
overworked myself to try to make up.
Overcompensate.
Yeah, I'm going to make myself too busy to think about it, or so busy that.
Yes.
So I was trying to fill these weird voids with just so much insurmountable pressure. And
Right.
then that wasn't good because then I was
Oh
had too
God.
much pressure, and then business, and then
Right. And then you're a
I
monster at home,
yeah,
even worse
yeah.
than
So
before.
yeah, so you're I was masking all of the PTSD
Mm.
things, all of those, emotional issues that I was having, and identity issues of what is
Right.
my purpose, what is my identity, who am I, masking all of that with, so much work and so much drinking and things of that nature that
But in
was
that area, you're outperforming everybody, would be my guess. So
pretty much, yeah,
you're getting the accolades of, and then wondering why does this not fulfill me?
yeah, yeah. And then
Mm.
what I did find is that before COVID, I started going to group at the VA. And it
Mm.
was definitely interesting because there was not another SEAL, but there was a
Right.
ton of guys that were Marines, Army, and these guys saw some horrible stuff in Iraq and Afghanistan. One guy that was there, he was the only person from his whole, battalion or whatever. It was like 180 guys that actually came home. He was like the one guy that lived,
Holy shit.
Yeah, so like I would go and just sit and
Talk
talk to
about
them.
survivor's guilt and
Oh yeah, yeah.
God.
So there was a lot of people that I got to sit with and start appreciating
Processing.
and processing, and then saying, hey,
Mm,
I feel comfortable with everybody here. These are people that have a like mind, that have served in that
right,
capacity, but they've experienced things that I've never seen. Watching
right.
a truck full of your friends blow up, I have never seen that, and they're processing this, and
Mm.
I can try to help. I could just try to be there.
Back to
And
just being a
I
good dude. You
yeah,
became
but
a
I would
teammate again.
yeah, exactly. And I would speak and talk, when I wanted to, talk about stuff, or I would, input what I thought, when we were, when it was appropriate. But a lot of times I just sat there and listened, but just being in the room with all those different guys. And I guess, the point is that you don't have to be from the same team or the same branch. As a veteran, you're a veteran,
I would
and
agree.
we're all like-minded people. So I just felt comfortable with veterans. So then I started looking to help other veterans find other ways to be around other veterans. And then that's how the progression started with, I guess, my own kind of healing. Was my best thing to do for myself would be serving others in that
Mm.
capacity, trying to help other veterans, help, people get through this stuff. And I
Man, I hope
haven't,
people are taking notes because you are writing a master class right now.
well,
This
well,
is this is
thank you. I hope.
exactly spot on.
Well, I've been doing it for a long time now. I got out in the end of 2000, so it's been a long road. I still got a ways to go. I'm not perfect in any way. I still am really faulted, but
Of course.
I'm trying, man. That's it. That's all we got to do is
Well, and
try. And
I think that's the main point in all reality is you keep showing up. I've heard multiple SEALs on Sean Ryan talk about, and obviously as you've expressed, the people who finish anything hard, whether in their situation it's fun. But the point is, if you don't quit and you just keep showing up, eventually you will arrive at whatever the destination is.
Mhm. Yep.
And so I commend you. And again, anybody who's watching, the point of these conversations is these are very basic, practical advice of how do you get through, by, with, and through life's challenges.
Well, it's very practical advice. The problem is implementing it.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? That it seems it's such a simple concept. It is the implementation of it for any of us to do it. So there's days in the morning where I don't get out of bed because I can't talk myself out of bed, right? But a
You
lot
are
of
not
times
alone.
I get up, right? But a lot of times you get up and you see that, oh, you got to do it, it's discipline. Yeah, I know exactly what I need to do every day to be
Right.
successful. Is my mind, am I going to win the battle with my mind to allow
Right.
myself to do those things? So that's why these concepts are fairly simple. Everyone has a different way of saying these things, but it's just getting into that routine of doing it and trying to just, adhere to it.
Right.
You have 7 days in a week. If you can get 5 or 6 out of that where you did it, you adhered to it, then I think you're in a good spot, right? But you got to
Absolutely.
start off with day one. That's the hardest part of it. Starting that first step is always the hardest. But it's a simple concept, Caleb. Like you said, I almost want to call it a life hack.
I,
You
I
get in what you
agree.
get
Well,
out.
and here's where, so I've had feedback on the name of the podcast.
Mhm.
Hey, 1% has negative connotations. Like, look, here's where this comes from. There's multiple facets of why I brought it up. But the most basic principle, the life hack is this. There's 24 hours in a day. If you control 1% of those, it's 14 minutes and 24 seconds.
Mm.
Do you
Yeah.
really not have that much control in your day?
It's a pretty interesting way of looking at it.
That's the baseline of why I put that in the podcast name. I guarantee you have it. 14 minutes and 24 seconds. Now, if you want to take it a step further, you compound that on a daily matter. By the end of the year, you have 32% of compound growth by controlling 1%. And then you just continue to do that over time, and you're on an exponential growth curve by only doing something very basic.
Well, isn't there a saying of if you do something 10 minutes a day or something like that, that you could master it
Create
in
the
100
habit.
days?
Yes. Yes,
So
something
like
along those lines.
yeah. So if you want to be 1%, you want to be in the top of
Right.
anything, and you have 14 minutes a day to adhere to that and practice that,
Right.
then like you said, you're gonna grow exponentially over the years. So I don't understand. There's always gonna be haters, man. There's always gonna be
Oh,
people that have opinions with the names and
absolutely.
stuff.
But the reason why I bring it up is I want people to understand, again, why we're having this conversation and the stuff sounds so basic, because it is. Life, if you break it down to the most basic, simple form, everybody only wants to be at the top, but nobody wants to do the basic stuff to get there.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah, and it's the monotonous stuff.
Right.
That's the problem. It's the stuff that nobody's going to cheer for you, nobody cares about.
Right.
And
what you
nobody,
do behind closed doors is
Yeah.
what determines what everybody outside those sees. Plain and
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, but you have to kind of get that in your mind that you need to put in those 900 hours, of grit to get that, 20 minutes of fame kind of a thing, where people go, "Oh my God, look what you did," and you're going, "Well, I've been doing it for 900 hours." They don't see that. They only see that, 20 minutes, where where it counts. It's
Well,
a interesting world.
I think a Usain Bolt, and I don't, again, of course, we see a lot of things in social media. Point being is, and he's obviously trained probably half of his adult life, if not more, to run for 9 seconds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We only want to see the glory part, but nobody wants to see. And then when they see, do the backside that's like, oh my gosh, that's impossible. No. Impossible and I'm possible. It's the difference between taking ownership and then creating space. That's it. Are you going to do those simple tasks and own it? Or go, no, I'm just going to be a victim here because this is hard. Okay, the choice is yours.
Yeah.
When people will say, oh, I can or can't do something. I go, yeah, you're absolutely correct. And they want, no, the pet talk. Like, you just told me you couldn't do it. I don't have time to deal with them. If you want to say, how do I, right, how do I do this? Then I'll explain it to you. And then if you want help, I'll tell you, put in this amount of work, show me that you can do that, and then come back. Then I'll realize you're serious, and then we can have another conversation. Because I used to try and I'd get involved at the very beginning, and because I just got excited. I was looking for a try. Oh, you want to do this? I'll give you every resource imaginable. And then they go like, wow, that's a lot of work. I'm like, well, but I thought you wanted to do it. Oh, I wasn't actually really interested. I was just interested with the glory, not with the grind.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, fair enough. So I just kind of ride the wave, if you will.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, obviously, you did the corporate thing. I would assume I didn't find that the most fulfilling. How do you then become involved with the Murph Foundation?
So with my audio video company doing a ton of work all over the place, and I hear that there's whispers a Navy SEAL museum is going to be created on Long Island. Now, I am looking for anything to make myself feel better, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, I have to get involved with this. I have to have my name on this. I need to do something. So I tried for like 2 years to get in touch with somebody. So
Okay.
they hired a woman that was supposed to be like their marketing or something person and dealt with like, fundraising or whatever. So they didn't have a building, they didn't have an office, they just had a phone number and, some sort of web portal.
Right.
And I kept leaving messages. And then finally one day I spoke to this woman and she's like, oh, yeah, I'll try to get you plans. I'll try to, connect you with people. And then I didn't realize they had a falling out with the family because she was not doing the right
Mm,
thing. And so now I never had contact again. So, in a really weird twist of fate, somebody that I knew said, hey, Chris, I want you to come to a Rotary Club meeting. I've never been to a Rotary Club meeting. I didn't know what it was. And it's, more of networking for,
right.
contractors and stuff.
Yep.
And I said, well, why would you want me to come to that? And they said, well, Mr. Murphy's going to be there and they're talking about the museum. And I just thought as a SEAL, you would like to go. And I said, wow, that would be cool. I wanted to hear about the museum.
Right.
So show up at this Rotary Club meeting. And granted, they had free breakfast. So I'm in, I can eat.
With one
And
arm.
right, yeah. And so I sit down, listen to the presentation, and at the end, I got up and went and introduced myself and said, "Listen, I would love to help.
Okay.
That's what I would like to do. I want to help." And I gave them a card. They called me about a week later. I met with them. I explained to them I would like to design all of the audio video aspects for the museum, do the alarm system and cameras
Right.
and all of those things, and automate the museum and utilize my connections so that I could, get discounts or donated equipment and save the museum money and that part.
Right.
That was all I thought I was going to do.
Okay.
That I would have been tremendously happy knowing I did my part, was a part of the museum. So a few weeks later, they come back to me and say, "Would you be interested on being on the board? We would love to have a SEAL on the board to kind of,
Right.
put this input in." And I said, wow, I'd be honored. I've never been on a board of a, business like
Right.
that. So I take this board member position. And for years, I help with the other board members and oversee the construction of the museum. Then I ultimately help design the entire, audio video aspect and all those systems, use my contacts, do all of these things, get everything installed. And just before the museum opened, the family came to me and said, "Hey, we can't see anybody else running the museum. We'd really love to have you if you would do that." And again,
Wow.
was touched by that. Um, and so running the museum, or running my business, and doing all these things, wearing all the different hats, business owner wears, and running around all over Long Island, dealing with trying to collect money, dealing with people and arguing and all these other little,
Yep.
nuances of owning a business, I decided, okay, this may be a good shift for me where, getting older, slow my business down, do this, and maybe I'll, get a good quality of life would change, right? And so that's what I did. That's how I got into the role of the director. Was just it was offered to me. I enjoy it. Like I said earlier, it's kind of therapeutic for me to be there. I get to tell the stories of a lot of people, the history of naval special warfare. I get to speak about, the sacrifice of our entire military,
Right.
to kids, and try to just explain that, we're bringing the fight overseas, so you're not losing
Right.
sleep at night worrying that you're going to wake up and there'll be enemy soldiers in your streets. We don't ever think of that.
Nope.
And it's
Thank God.
yeah, definitely thank God, but it's like trying to get these kids to understand.
There's a big world out there.
Well, there's a big world, but most of these high school kids, they were born after 9/11.
Right,
They didn't experience any of that.
right,
They don't have any actual life experience of loss. Most of
right.
them. Some of them may have lost a grandparent or a parent, and that's horrible. But a lot of them, a bad day for them is they drop their phone and the screen cracks. That's to them is like horrific. So they can't
Yep.
relate to a lot of the things that, we're trying to explain to them, and it's difficult. But, those are the messages I'm trying to, you know, uh, portray and relay to them is, these men and women in service are sacrificing their lives, to keep all of you safe. And
Right.
it's a message I enjoy relaying.
That's pretty cool. Now,
Uh-huh.
I just want to ask, seen some cool photos of some like UTVs and some Hummers. What's going on with that?
Yeah, so the dune buggy, the DPV was
Yeah.
so that I built for the museum, right?
Okay.
And now I've had a couple of people reach out that are military contractors or companies that are like, "Hey, would you build one for us?" And so that may turn into something else where I'm building some of those on the weekends. But uh,
Okay.
I I started my lifelong dream car when I was growing up was a Hummer.
Okay.
So I was
The
huge
H1.
an H1. I was hugely into Arnold Schwarzenegger when I was little
Yeah.
and loved Arnold. And then when Arnold rolled off the line at AM General with in 92 or 91 when he had the first
Right.
civilian Hummer, I was like, that's the car I want. So
Okay.
fast forward years later, I decide probably 8, 10 years ago that, I'm old enough, I've had my business, I want a Hummer. And I buy a used Hummer, and it was awesome. I just loved it. Got in it, everybody's waving, everybody's smiling, grown men are waving, because you just don't see them on the road.
Right.
And then my business was going well and it was very busy. So I had to bring the truck to get serviced. So I had to
Okay.
bring the truck to a shop, drop it off. 3 or 4 months later, it's fixed. It wasn't a tremendous amount of work. Cost me like 30 grand to fix the truck over the three
Wow.
months. And I went, wow, okay, I signed up for this, paid the guy, I didn't have a problem with it, but I just went, I can do this myself. I'm like, I know how
Okay.
to work on vehicles, I know how to do these things. I can do this myself. So I started doing that. And then as I'm doing this and people started hearing that I can do that, um, and build trucks and, do the interior work and make things like
Right.
high quality and, correct. That's a shock with a lot of people is doing things correctly.
Mm.
Then the word spread, and then all of a sudden
That,
I get people, hey, can you do my truck? Or hey, can you do my truck? So that's where
ah,
those things started happening. It was a hobby that we became a passion, but then became a job. And then now I'm slowing it back down to a hobby because I can't do all of these
right.
things, and I'm more focused on the speaking and the veteran
Thank you.
stuff. Trying to be around veterans and do these programs and things of that nature because I think that's where I'm more centered.
Mm.
Yeah, and well, when you pedal your ass over to New York, we'll go out in the Hummers.
Dude, I'm almost there. Oh,
Yeah, I can see that.
well, Chris, I appreciate your time.
No problem,
Again,
man.
I I really hope that people were taking notes. This was a master class in how do you really reground yourself? How do I figure my life out when I'm going through name your trauma, problem, adversity, and then how do I overcome? And that was very powerful. I appreciate the vulnerability and that brought back a lot of memories that I hadn't thought about in a long time. So
Well,
for me, that
I
was
hope it helped somebody.
therapeutic.
Yeah,
Yeah,
well, I hope it helps somebody, and I always am around for people if they ever need anything. want to talk, have a sounding board, that's it. We all just need to be here for each other, especially veterans.
I agree.
It's an awesome group to be a part of. Motley crew, but definitely awesome group to be a part of. But
Ain't that the truth?
I'm super proud of what you're doing, brother. And anytime I can speak to you, I would love the opportunity. But please keep in touch and have a happy holiday. How much? When did you start today? When did you start pedaling?
I started at 10 a.m. Pacific, so now I'm 7 hours, and I started technically at 10:05 because I wasn't going to rush to failure. So
Yeah.
I'm 7 hours and 2 minutes into this,
Okay.
and really just getting started. So
Well, text me if you need somebody to talk to in the morning. I'm usually up.
I appreciate you, sir. I look forward
Okay.
to seeing your 4:30 gym post.
Oh, definitely, and keep pedaling and stay safe and love to the family, man.
You too. I appreciate you, man. Thank you very much.